All right, let's talk about managing apps on Azure Kubernetes Service. If you've been doing it for any length of time, you know it can get, well, complicated and fast. So today, we're going to cut right through all that complexity. We're going to dive into a practice that brings some serious order, predictability, and speed to your deployments. I'm talking about GitOps.
So let me ask you something. Does this feel familiar? You're trying to juggle applications across, dev, staging, prod, and it just feels like you're playing this endless game of whack-a-mole with all your configurations, right? You make one tiny change over here, and suddenly a massive problem pops up over there. It's a huge headache for sure, but here's the good news. It's a headache we can totally solve.
I mean, for the longest time, this was just how things were done, wasn't it? You've got developers running kubectl apply straight from their laptops, which, let's be honest, is a recipe for disaster. Total inconsistency. And then, when something inevitably breaks, what happens? Hours spent digging through logs, trying to figure out that one dreaded question. Okay, who changed what? And all the while, your staging and prod environments, which are supposed to be perfect mirrors of each other, are just drifting further and further apart. Oh, and rollbacks? Forget about it. They were these manual, stressful, all-hands-on-deck emergencies.
Look, this manual, error-prone way of doing things, it just doesn't scale. Not when our systems are getting more complex. All it does is introduce risk, slow everybody down, and frankly, it just burns out your team. So yeah, there has to be a better way. And thankfully, there is.
And that better way is called GitOps. The core idea here is actually, it's beautifully simple. The desired state of your entire system, I'm talking every single deployment, every service, every config map, the whole shebang, is declared and version controlled inside a Git repository. So think about that. Git isn't just for your application code anymore. It becomes the ultimate single source of truth for your entire infrastructure.
Okay, so this is a really fundamental shift in thinking. It's all about moving from a push model to a pull model. So in the old way, right, your CI pipeline, or a developer, would literally push changes directly into the cluster. And there's a huge security problem with that because it means your CI system needs these super powerful admin-level credentials to your cluster. Yikes. But with GitOps, it's totally different. An automated agent inside the cluster is constantly pulling the desired state from Git. The cluster itself is reaching out. Nothing from the outside gets to just push changes in whenever it wants. It's a game changer for security.
Here's a great way to think about it. Imagine your Git repository is like the constitution for your application. It's the set of laws that defines exactly how everything should run. So if Git is the constitution, then the GitOps agent, something like Flux or Argo CD, is the tireless enforcer. Its one and only job is to constantly watch the cluster and make sure that reality, what's actually running, always matches the law written in that constitution.
So, how does this enforcer actually work? Well, it all happens in this continuous, automated loop. Check it out. First, a developer pushes a change to the Kubernetes manifests in Git, all those YAML files. And that's it. That's the only manual step in the whole process. From there, the agent inside your AKS cluster is always watching, and it notices, hey, the live state doesn't match what's in Git anymore. That difference, by the way, is called drift. As soon as it sees that drift, the agent automatically pulls the new manifests and applies them, bringing the cluster right back into sync. And this loop just runs 24/7, constantly making sure any little bit of configuration drift gets squashed almost instantly.
All right, so this continuous loop, this reconciliation, it's amazing for keeping our applications and services perfectly in sync. But what about the cluster itself, right? What about the virtual machines, the networking, the actual foundation that all our apps are running on?
This is a really important distinction, and it's where we need to think about two different layers and using the right tool for the right job. I love this analogy. Think of tools like Terraform or Bicep as what you use to build the house itself. That's your foundational AKS cluster infrastructure. Then you use GitOps tools like Flux or Argo CD to arrange all the furniture inside the house. That's all your applications, your services, your deployments. See how that works? They're not competing. They're working together to manage the entire stack, and each one has its own critical job to do.
Okay, so the theory is awesome, right? It's super compelling. But the big question is always, how do you actually get started with this without causing a huge disruption to everything? So let's get practical. Let's move from the what to the how and talk about some concrete first steps you can take.
First off, you do not have to boil the ocean here. Seriously, just start with one single Git repo for all your Kubernetes stuff to keep it simple.
Inside that repo, you can just use different folders or maybe branches for your environments, like dev, staging, and prod. And this is the most important part. Start small. Please don't try to migrate everything all at once. Just pick one non-critical application and make that your pilot project. Oh, and here's a great pro tip for you. You can actually start your GitOps agent in a read-only kind of audit mode. It'll just detect and report on any drift it finds, but it won't automatically fix anything. This is a fantastic way to let your team get comfortable and see what's happening before you hand over the keys and turn on the full automation.
So once you've got this automated, super reliable delivery pipeline for your applications, well, that's when the possibilities just explode. It really leads you to this bigger, more interesting question. Okay, what's the next thing that can become a source of truth in Git? Could you define your security policies in Git? What about your monitoring dashboards, or even your network rules? You see, GitOps is so much more than just a deployment strategy. It's a really powerful new way of thinking about how we manage all these complex systems, declaratively and most importantly, safely.